Welcome, everyone, to Three Side Sportscast. We're back again. I appreciate you joining us. Joined once again by Jerry Sue, Jeff Kerpinski. I'm Todd Kleinheinz. Just before we get started, I do have a little bit of a chip on my shoulder or something to get off my chest. And that is one of the reasons I started the idea of wanting to have a podcast, especially with you guys, was essentially the lack of intelligent discussion, specifically centered on the Niners, but just in general, that floods the sports talk arena. And I don't mind, projections and guys going out on a limb. I just can't stand these Skip Baylesses of the world who just go complete contrarian, completely off the rails just because. And the two things that bothered me the most this past weekend and leading in the days after the Niner Washington game was, one, the complete lack of understanding, and maybe everyone has forgot, Nick Mullens is a backup quarterback. And he's a backup quarterback for a reason. He was undrafted for a reason. Not that some guys cannot become that, such as Matt Hasselbeck, but the idea that he's a backup quarterback who should come in and be great is completely missing the point. And one of the things that, if we want to get into later, is the fact that of all the backup quarterbacks in the NFL, there's maybe 3 of them that you would say, give me that guy to lead my football team, and I got confidence he can do it. So everyone who's just yelling and just off their rocker about Nick Mullens not getting the job done either had unrealistic expectations or has forgotten what a backup quarterback should be. The second is, until you watch the All-22 film, you cannot really see how open some of these guys, these receivers, are for the Niners, and how bad Mullens in particular is missing them. And so the people who are screaming, look, if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably a pretty diehard sports fan. You've probably gone to a game, you wear a jersey, anything. You can drop the $50 or $60 that it costs to get the NFL Game Pass and watch the All-22. And until you do that, you need to keep your mouth shut about how bad the play calling is, because when you watch that All-22, there are guys wide open. The quarterback is missing them. So those are the 2 things I needed to get off my chest right off the bat, just because they've been festering and bothering me so much over the last couple of days. So you guys can chime in on either of those before we start on, regular stuff, but those were just festering for the past 2 days.
Well, first of all, you started this podcast because you wanted intelligent conversation. You chose us?
Yeah.
Wow. That's a first for me. I don't know. But
shows you how small my circle of contacts was.
Right. Nick Mullens, like you said, he's an undrafted quarterback who has limitations, right? But I think, so there are 2 sides to it. On the one hand, well, first of all, let me ask, do you guys know who John Wolford is?
Yes.
You do?
The backup for the Rams.
Damn, you are a nerd. That's probably why we're friends.
You know why?
But that's the thing, right? But who's John Wolford? Do you know if he's any good?
No, but that's
exactly.
That's
so that's just how most backup situations are. So yes, to your point, in this day and age, with how the salary cap works and how much we have to pay certain players, it's hard to get your, Montana, Young, Bono quarterback room. That's just not going to happen in this day and age. But at the same time, like you said, when you watch the All-22, which I haven't, but just in watching just the regular review, you can still see Mullens missing wide open receivers or missing them high or basically not completing passes where the opportunity was there to make a play. And I think that's what most fans are, who are up in arms about, are, upset about.
Okay, and that's fine. But here's my thing. It took me, I didn't know you're John Wofford until 2 days ago when I started going, okay, everyone's complaining about our backup quarterback situation. Let me see what else is out there in the NFL. And so what I did was I just listed all of the backup quarterbacks that entering this season. And unless you were going to pay Jacoby Brissett $21 million to back up Rivers, Alex Smith $20 million to back up at the point Dwayne Haskins, you're talking, and we got into Mariota last week. He's the number 3 backup. He's making 9.1. So unless you were willing, which you've got to have a special circumstance, like you just signed Phillip Rivers, or you've got to have a circumstance where you're making a quarterback like that. So, and I'm even gonna give the people who are bashing the Niner backup quarterback situation the benefit of the doubt and say, okay, let's take Mullens $500,000 and CJ Beathard's $800,000. Let's combine. Let's just say their backup quarterback is making $1.2 million, something in that range, right? That is still at the bottom. I mean, going through some of these names, I was shocked that Geno Smith is still in the league, that Brett Hundley is still in the league. You're talking about Matt Barkley, Chad Henne. Like, none of these guys are the Steve Young or Steve Bono or Don Majkowski, that are backing up these court. They're not in this realm. So nobody no one should feel good if their backup quarterback has to come in and play any sort of stretch meaningful snaps. That's not rational for the fans, like you said, who are calling them out. And that's my problem is fans. It took me 10 minutes on Google to find, well, let me see, is the Niner quarterback room, their backups really that bad? Is it really that underpaid? Is it really that lacking in experience? And it's not. It is the same as virtually everyone else. Did you guys happen to see the Texans game when Deshaun Watson got hurt this past week?
No.
So the Texans, 2nd and goal from about the 6-inch line. Deshaun gets hurt. In comes, anyone?
A.J. McCarron.
A.J. McCarron. And what's he do? Gets sacked for 12 yards. He could have done he could have thrown
anything but that, right?
But that's the problem. So the backup quarterbacks are there. I even heard someone talk about, like, backup quarterbacks in this league either play well enough to become starters or play bad enough to exit the league. You don't really have the lifelong backups that you used to, because it's just not cost efficient unless you have a guy who's more of a coach, who's just in there from the coaching perspective. You don't have those.
Let me just say this, maybe back up a little bit. Mullens, I think part of the reason is we had an expectation, if I'm remembering correctly, the expectation that maybe he would come in and be decent, or there was even some talk of maybe Mullens should be the guy a couple of years ago over Jimmy. So I think partly it's the expectation from me or whoever fan that he can at least get it done, or he was really smart, or he really knew the playbook, or he was steps ahead of Jimmy. So people think that, okay, well, this guy is decent. He can get it done. And then you see, like you said, on the All-22 or whatever video clips you look at online, or I've looked them out online. I don't have the All-22, but you see some clips where you see him missing the guys. And not, like Jerry said, short, missing him entirely, not even seeing that the guys are open. Several of them are open. Because I saw a few clips like that just the other day, whatever Shanahan drew up, and there was probably 5 guys open on in different route combinations, and nothing happened. He checked it down or threw it incomplete. So, but so I think the expectation maybe was there that he could do it, but he's the backup. But then the other thing is, like you're talking about, all these other quarterbacks being decent and the backups not getting in there. We're expecting our quarterback, the big time money guy, to stay healthy. Right. And that's then the problem.
Yeah, I totally agree with the fact that it's, the root of the problem is Jimmy can't stay healthy. So that's why we need
now we're stuck with these other guys.
Exactly.
For long periods of time, not just one game, 2 games.
Totally agree. So,
but but I'll say this. So I think there are a couple of things. One, we just got off our run to the Super Bowl. And what usually happens when that happens, right? Expectations run high. Secondly, everybody I think can agree that Kyle Shanahan's a great play designer, a great play caller. So then again, there's kind of that high expectation, right? Yeah. And I'm sure deep down we all sort of hope that Nick Mullens could be like Nick Foles, right? A guy who isn't exactly, well, he isn't a good starting quarterback, but as a backup can jump in, win a few games. But, ultimately, like all these backups, like you've been saying, they're backups for a reason. And, they've got their warts. And when they are asked to start for prolonged periods, then, they'll get exposed.
Yeah, because we were excited, I think, about Nick Mullens. 2 years ago, he showed some glimpses. But obviously now we've seen enough to know, all right, let's get this guy out of town. But then again, like Todd's saying, he's a backup. So now he's playing his way out of the league, possibly.
It's not so much I want to get Nick Mullens out of town. That's my contention is the fact that
he's just a backup.
He's marginally worse than, honestly, I'll take Nick Mullens and his $500,000 contract over Colt McCoy and his $2.2 million.
Right.
Or, AJ McCarron's $4 million. So if you're saying, so
money-wise, we're fine.
So money-wise, it works. But,
but Jimmy has to stay on the field.
But Jimmy has to stay healthy, which is routine for all of these, starting quarterbacks, which leads me. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, maybe that's why Green Bay, despite all the controversy, drafted Jordan Love, right? That's his name, Jordan Love, right? Because they would be one play away from losing Aaron Rodgers.
What if, right?
Would be catastrophic for them, as it would be for any team. Even
if you think about it, back during the Green Bay Packers run with Favre during his heyday, they drafted quarterbacks pretty routinely, if not every year, every other year, just for that standpoint that they would have somebody develop them. And if it worked, great. If it didn't, it's fine. They had Hasselbeck, they had Matt Flynn, and all those guys showed enough promise to go get a contract.
I think that's the thing, right? You're always hoping for them to draft these quarterbacks and them turning out into being a Matt Hasselbeck or a Mark Brunell. But then you're going to get your Matt Flynn's.
Yeah. So
I've said that before, like you're talking about the Packers. I almost think these teams should draft a quarterback every year or every 2 years, because now we're in the situation we're in. So we traded for Jimmy. We've only drafted Beathard in this regime.
Yep.
But they have to be good. I don't know. I don't really subscribe to that. Like that, you should draft a quarterback every year, because you don't want to draft them just for the sake of drafting them, because there might not be anybody worth.
Well, maybe not first round, but it's all about the quarterback in this league, right? So,
no, I hear you. But
if you don't have the guy, then
right. And as of this recording, just shortly earlier today, Kyle had his press conference announcing that Mullens will be the starter against Dallas. And my initial thought was that is a real big red flag for CJ Beathard is not good then. As much as the headlines want to say, Mullens, he'll be on a short leash. The fact that he played like that against Washington, and they're not giving, I believe Kyle when he says he's going to put the guy he thinks can win the game in the game. And if he thinks it's Mullens, that's more of a statement for CJ not being able to do anything than it is for Mullens is definitely the guy. I don't know if you guys have thoughts on that.
And then Kyle saying that he didn't change out the quarterback in this past game because CJ wasn't ready or he didn't prepare. I'm thinking that happens every week. You have the possibility if the guy gets hurt or whatever else happens. Look what happened to Lamar Jackson. The backup has to go in. So whether he prepared, he should know the playbook well enough to then be able to go in after halftime.
Yep.
For anything but a spark, something.
I agree.
I think three things. I think, one, this is an indictment on Kyle Shanahan and his inability to evaluate quarterbacks when it comes to the draft,
or getting another one, like I was saying.
Because he pounded on the table for CJ, and
John
Lynch traded up to get him, right? Here when I didn't even think Beathard would be taken until the late rounds. which leads to my second point, that the Niners need to seriously reevaluate what they're looking for in a quarterback. Maybe they add another personnel guy who's better at judging quarterback talent. I don't know, because if you look at all three guys in the quarterback room, they're all kind of similar and have similar faults. Like, they're not good at extending plays. They're turnover prone. Everybody points to how well Jimmy played last season, but I mean, he threw 13 interceptions and fumbled 10 times.
Right.
Which brings me to my third point, which is that none of these QBs have gotten significantly better during their tenure with the Niners. No offense, Shane Day, but I think you got to go.
Well, I was thinking
I'd hire Jeff Garcia as the quarterback coach, because all I hear whenever I hear him talk about the Niners is how fundamentally unsound the quarterbacks are with their footwork and their reads. So, hey, let him put his money where his mouth is. Bring in that grinder like Garcia and have him whip the next batch of quarterbacks into shape.
Well, there's him or somebody else or that Scangarello guy back or whatever. But I thought the same thing the other day. That it doesn't seem like these guys have gotten better, at least the backups, right? Or even you could say the same thing about Jimmy. Yeah.
Yeah. So staying on the topic only because it popped into my head, and that's being quarterbacks. Is there any thought that Trevor Lawrence pulls an Eli this year, and doesn't go or want to go to the Jets?
Well, yeah, I actually knew that already. I've said that. I want to see it for the drama and for the fact it's the Jets. I would like to see him say, "No, I'm not going to the Jets," and force a trade.
Yes, but why? But I guess my question more is why? Because Eli didn't want to go to San Diego because of the situation. Like he wanted to go to New York, and so now here.
You could say the same thing about the Jets, right? What's their situation?
Right, and so it's like if you're Trevor Lawrence, granted they're probably going to be a coaching change and all those types of things, so that might change things.
Which is a bad situation. I mean, that's what I meant.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. It's too early to say, because who's going to be the head coach, right? And unlike the Niners, the Jets actually have a ton of cap space to sign free agents.
Yes.
And I don't even know whether, what Trevor's personality is like. Does he crave the spotlight? Does he want to be in a big city like New York? I feel like all of those factors would come into play as far as whether or not, he'd force his way out.
Well, let me put you both into a time machine and go back about 12 years, because when Andrew Luck was coming out of Stanford, Jerry and I had very intense conversations, and the situation was, if Andrew Luck was your son, and Jerry was adamant that he would not want his son to play for Indianapolis. He didn't like the situation. I was of the mindset of, if you're going to be drafted number one, you go to number one. The Colts didn't seem to be such a dysfunctional franchise in terms of decades and decades of trouble and turmoil. So if you're Trevor Lawrence's dad, are you looking at the Jets as a completely dysfunctional team? Not just because, not this year with the coaching, and no matter who the coach gets, but do you look at the Jets in the Big Apple with all the publicity as a place, boy, I would really not want my son to play there?
Well, that's partly why I said it initially, because I don't know how you guys feel it. To me, the Jets have been like the Browns. Just, I don't remember the last time they were any good outside of those AFC Championship games. But I mean, I would want my son going to the Jets if I had a choice. What's so special about the Jets? Just because they're New York? But to me, that doesn't mean anything either. And they're dysfunctional. We don't know the coaches. Their GM maybe was just hired. What's the ownership doing? Do you guys want to win? I mean, to me, that's not a very good situation at all. I'm not saying Jacksonville's better, but you could force a trade to somebody entirely different. Who knows?
Yeah, man. Like I said before, I think it just, for me, it would largely depend on the management structure, right? Like, I'm not as familiar with Joe Douglas as I was with Ryan Grigson, right? And we need to know who the head coach is going to be. And again, like I said, they had tons of cap space to sign free agents. So the hope would be that they surround the quarterback with enough weapons and protection, right? I mean, my concern about Indianapolis has largely come to fruition. Look at Andrew Luck now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. And they didn't address the O-line until too late. Right.
Yeah. Grigson did not do Luck any favors. He got pounded into the ground and had to retire early.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which has concern for Trevor Lawrence coming out. And either one of those teams, I mean, it has to be a good sales pitch to him, right? Like, I got this new coach coming in. Maybe they have a relationship already. Maybe they know each other. I mean, who knows, right? Maybe they can sell him on it. And we're going to go spend all this money, and we drafted a lineman last year, and we're going to take care of you. Because if they have any fear that he's going to get his ass kicked, I mean,
right. So right now, we just don't know. I'm personally more intrigued by all the guys that the Niners might have a chance at drafting, like Zach Wilson or Trey Lance or Mac Jones, who will be playing this Saturday in the SEC championship against Florida, and Kyle Trask. So those will be two quarterbacks I'm more concerned about.
And I'd also like to put to bed a myth that we've talked about on this podcast and is perpetuated all throughout Ninerland, and that is the Niners are in salary cap hell. And that's just not true. Based right now, they are middle of the pack in terms of money available next year. In terms of they are 16th, dead right in the middle of the 32 teams with $22 million to spend, even if they brought everybody back. And the thought is that they might cut Jimmy loose, open it up more space. They might let go of D Ford, opening up more. They could obviously restructure contracts like Eric Armstead or Jimmy Ward's, converting that money, their base salaries to salary or signing bonus money, opening up more space. So the Niners they're not Jacksonville with $84 million.
Did you say $22 million bringing back all their free agents?
No. I'm saying that's how much they're on the hook for all their players under contract next year.
Gotcha.
Gives them $22 million.
Do they did they already establish what the new salary cap would be? Like, I know initially the expectation was $225 million, right? And then it's going down
to $175.
So for sure not $195. I thought it might range between $175 and $195. So have they already determined that it's going to be $175 for sure?
I don't know if they've determined, because I don't think they can determine until the end of the year once all the salaries are kicked in and they take percentages for next year. So I've seen the same thing. Most of the places I've seen have listed it at 175, and that's obviously if it's any higher, that just helps the Niners in terms of opening up money. But my comment, basically my stance on that is they're not in any worse financial shape than half the league, and they're in better financial shape than half the league. I mean, give me, you want to, talk about trouble. How about the Eagles? Eagles right now, $64 million over the cap. So before they sign their draft class or a free agent, they got to clear out $64 million, which obviously they'll do. They'll cut high-priced players and things like that. But the idea that the Niners are too strapped to either sign their free agents or bring in anybody, I think is a misnomer. And I think it's kind of been a crutch and an excuse for some people, too worried that they're not going to be able to open back up that Super Bowl window.
I don't know if it's been overstated. It's not 2002, right? Is that when the Niners had to burn it all to the ground? They let go of Jeff Garcia and basically had to go bare bones. But at the same time, it is a concern when you have a lot of key free agents that are about to hit the open market, particularly a guy like Trent Williams, who's a left tackle. Left tackles don't grow on trees, at least not ones that are really good, right? And the Packers just signed David Bakhtiari to some astronomical deal. So I don't know what the Packers cap situation is like, but that was kind of a surprise. But by having that contract out there, does that set the market for what Trent Williams might be able to get? I know he's 33 years old, so he won't be getting David Bakhtiari money, but how close might he come to it? So, because I think that it's, it's not just important, it's essential to get Trent Williams re-signed. Because if they don't have him, who's gonna be the guy? Let's say they keep Jimmy, right? And they aren't able to re-sign guys like Trent Williams or some of the other core guys. Who's going to protect Jimmy? I mean, we already talked about how injury prone he is.
Yeah, I think if there's many roads that front office can go down in terms of what they're going to do at the quarterback position in the draft and free agency. But if in their mind they're keeping Jimmy, barring a great trade offer or anything else, if they're under the impression that I would imagine that they might renegotiate his contract, which had me thinking, why would Parag allow for a no trade clause to be put into Jimmy's contract? Because he just doesn't do those types of things. My meandering brain would think that's a bargaining chip for Parag, because if Jimmy's bad when he signed this contract, if his agent thought, well, he's not going to be very good and we don't want to be able to be traded to anywhere, you're going to have to cut us. Well, come the off season, he's not doing well. So does Parag go to his agent and go, look, we're going to cut you. And you're going to, you can go fight it out on the free agent market coming off of an injury and a not great season and try and get your $26 million again. Or you can renegotiate your contract. We'll drop you down to $15 million, and extend some kind of signing bonus or whatever. So it's very possible that no trade clause could be a negotiating point for Parag to get Jimmy, because if he can't trade him, his options are you either accept a trade to where we're going to take you, you're going to get cut, or you take the pay cut. And looking at the landscape, Jimmy can't be thinking it's a great year to become a free agent quarterback.
Yeah, there's a couple things. We're not in a position where we're way over the cap, like in some years. But we're not in a position now, 5 years ago, where we had all kinds of money. We were thinking, we're going to go spend all this money, which we did. But the problem is, I guess, to your point, that's what we're being fed. And that's all I'm hearing is, they don't have any money. We don't have any money. And I hate worrying about the money, because in the past I've said, just go get the guy, just figure it out. But everyone's telling me now online or whatever, they don't have any money. So if you're telling me, don't worry about the money, then sure, sign Trent Williams. But what my point, like before, was if there's no money, I can't sign him to $20 million a year, like Bakhtiari or whatever. There's just no way it's possible. And
yeah, well, I mean,
there's a way how you can do that. You got to slide Brunskill over, McGlinchey over. I mean, just blow the whole thing up, because
I think it's kind of like, when your wife says she wants a new car and you go, yeah, honey, whatever you want.
Right.
And all of a sudden she comes back and he's like, yeah, I want I want a Ferrari, I want a McLaren. And you're like, well, hey, now let's go back to working within. That's what I think the Niners situation is. It's not they can't go spend willy-nilly and just bring in everybody they want, but they got the money to sign Trent Williams, to sign, K'Wan Williams, to sign a few of their guys, and some of the guys will have to be let go, and that's just the nature of the beast.
I think that to your point about the salary cap going down, and I don't think Jerry liked this, but so if it's going down 20%, then Trent Williams needs to 20% less of what he would have gotten. Whether or not he's willing to do that, or whether or not the culture is good and he wants to stay there,
sure.
That's just that's the reality of it, right? Otherwise, okay, fine, see ya, and we'll just move McGlinchey over there. We'll draft the right tackle in the second round, or school, and the other guy can fight it out. Or what are you gonna do?
Did you just say move McGlinchey, the guy who can't pass protect, over to the left tackle?
Only because he played left tackle.
You don't like our quarterbacks very much, do you?
just put it out there. But if you're telling me we can afford Trent Williams, fine. That's fine. Whatever.
Well, we can't. Not under. See, in my opinion, we can't. Not under the current what we have available. I mean, in terms of the cap space, I think Jimmy will either need to be cut and re-sign at a drastically reduced rate, or just be cut or traded or whatever, and we find ourselves a a more affordable quarterback in order to accommodate the re-signing of a lot of our key free agents. I mean, let me ask you this. So you brought up Deshaun Watson. Who's a better quarterback, Deshaun Watson or Jimmy Garoppolo?
I would put them both in the same tier in terms of my quarterback ranking. Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean,
Jeff, who's better? Who's better quarterback in your mind?
Hold on. Are you talking just? But now let me preface that.
No, I'm just asking, who's a better quarterback?
Well, physical skills, or are we saying who do I want? Because obviously Deshaun doesn't get hurt. It does matter. It absolutely matters. Do I have to take Deshaun's current contract?
No, skills. Flat out, skills. Who's the better quarterback?
No, I'd probably have to say Deshaun.
Okay. Todd?
Whoever you don't want is who I would take. I mean,
right.
it doesn't matter. I mean, both of those guys have.
What are you asking? I mean,
here's the thing, right? So Deshaun just got paid all that jack, right? Mm-hmm. And what did the Texans have to do? They had to get rid of DeAndre Hopkins, right? Mm-hmm. And the Texans are going to be 4-12.
But there's different scenarios.
They won't even have their top 10 pick in the draft, right?
He wanted to get paid, or he was just
traded it away. What's that?
Leadership wasn't good in the organization. I mean, there's all different factors that play into that too.
Yeah, I hear you, but still, I guess my point is that a quarterback can rarely do it by himself, and even a guy who is as talented as a Deshaun Watson, and correct. Jimmy Garoppolo is no Deshaun Watson.
Correct.
But that's the thing. I don't think anyone's who's arguing with you.
No, but what I'm saying is, you're better off having a collective core intact, right? Than to have, okay, let's just keep the status quo.
Yeah, I don't know.
Keep his contract.
No. I mean, this is a quarterback league. We need a quarterback.
Right, because you can't tell me, if I gave you, do you want, I don't know, 60 to 70% of the free agents back with Nick Mullens as your quarterback?
Right.
Or do you want 40% of your free agents back and any Jimmy, Deshaun Watson, any of these second-tier quarterbacks?
But wait, I'm sorry. What you're saying? But what I'm saying is not that. What I'm saying is that you can go out. You don't have to stay with Nick. Why do you have to be Nick or Jimmy? Right? We've talked about this in previous podcasts, right?
Absolutely.
You can go out and get Ryan Fitzpatrick. You can go out and get Marcus Mariota. I think those guys would do just fine. I mean, they would do just fine at the same level as a Jimmy Garoppolo, but they would cost half as much.
I hear that. I would definitely give Mariota a shot. Fitzpatrick, I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know if he's quarterback or a Super Bowl.
Well, he'd be more of a bridge quarterback, right? Yeah. You would have him as your bridge quarterback and you go draft one.
Right. Yeah. Draft somebody, but I'd take a flyer on Mariota. I mean,
again, I don't know. I think that's the most logical path to take. But as scarcity, brings out the best in everybody. These GMs are going to be, looking for quarterbacks. So again, I just got done saying it's not a good year for Jimmy to be a free agent quarterback because of these guys who are available at cheaper prices. Yeah. So teams who are looking for the bridge quarterback to bring in a Ryan Fitzpatrick and draft a Trey Lance, or bring in a Marcus Mariota and draft a Zach Wilson. Like that's kind of the plan for many of them. So if you're the Niners, I just don't think, it's great to please have plan A, B, C, D, all the way down to Z, but you can't bank on that. And one of those plans has to be, if Jimmy is our best option, then what are we going to do to build around him? And that's what I would rather have that situation than, okay, let's build everybody and have Nick Mullens. And that's why I'm saying, and those are just the names. Like, I think Fitzpatrick or Mariota with a draft pick is the best solution. I think you nailed it last week when you brought up those two guys, because, even if you gave Mariota a contract commensurate with what he, plus a bonus, his $9 million, plus, even $3 or $4 million, you're still at the lower end of starting quarterbacks in the NFL. And you can bring in Gardner Minshew for, whatever, if you want to give them, even if you want to give them $1 million or two combined, they're still going to be making a fraction compared to what a lot of these teams are paying their quarterback position.
Let me ask you this, Todd, based on what you're talking about, the salary cap, as far as what you know about it, can they keep Jimmy and be able to sign Trent, or are we that's just way out of bounds?
In theory, yes, because in theory you got $22 million. So
but then he would be it.
Right. So you could keep Jimmy at his contract. You could sign.
So if you keep Jimmy at his contract, sign Trent, then you're not signing Juszczyk or anybody else.
Correct. Exactly. So I mean, at this moment, like I said, you're probably going to get a little bit of cap relief if you cut D Ford. You're going to get some cap relief by cutting Weston Richburg. You can renegotiate some. Like Armstead's going to be making a boatload of money on base salary, but all you got to do is convert a majority of that to a signing bonus, and then it spreads out over the course of his contract. So instead of making $14 million, he's going to make $4 million, and the other 10 is spread out over the next 3 or 4 years. Now that's where
part of my curiosity when I asked that is, why didn't the front office re-up some of these guys before they all expired at once? 41 of them, and not all of them are good.
Right, because
you could re-up your Juszczyk,
because it's not 41 of those guys. It's probably 25 of those guys, because a bunch of those guys are
those guys you don't need. Right.
They just signed this year, that are some guys are coming up on their contract, but.
And remember, nobody expected the pandemic, right? The expected cap was $225 million. This all happened because we got a pandemic,
which is why I said Trent needs to take that percentage less, right? It only makes sense. He can't still expect to get back to
I don't think it's so much Trent, hey, there's the pandemic, so you should take less. I think it's just whatever the market bears, right? Did David Bakhtiari have to take less?
But that's why I'm saying maybe that's elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean,
and if you're the Jets, wouldn't you want to protect? Let's say you draft Trevor Lawrence, and you say we're going to go out there and we're going to get the best left tackle to protect your blind side, right? And maybe that's Trent Williams. Maybe they overpay immensely for Trent Williams, right? So you can't assume that Trent's going to take less because maybe somebody else out there will be willing to pay more.
Correct. But some of these guys are going to have to, just based on the financials, right?
And you got back to the Niners free agents, you got to remember 2 of your favorite guys are free agents in Austin Walker and JaMychal Hasty. Like, those aren't exactly must-have guys, and if they are, they're coming back for the league minimum, essentially, type of thing. So Ken Webster,
I hear your point. It's not 41, but they could have re-upped maybe some of these guys last year before, maybe, and spread it out. Maybe. Right now, I don't know.
I just don't think they probably thought about it at that point. Plus, going back to Trent Williams, I don't know how much creativity you can have in terms of structuring these contracts. I mean, that's, Parag Marate's forte, but, I'm hopeful that Trent Williams may not have to take less overall, but they can finagle it. And whereas he'll sign, his contract will be structured where it's less up front, right? And it'll be more later on when hopefully things get back to normal and the cap gets bigger.
But if we keep Jimmy, we can't just pay him because we still need a guy opposite Nick Bosa. We need a nickel corner.
Right, absolutely. And that's why back to Todd's original kind of hypothetical was, would you rather have Jimmy and not as great of a supporting cast, or Nick with a better supporting cast? Supporting cast, because honestly, if you think about it, this year, has Nick ever had the full complement? No, right?
No.
I mean, he defensively, Bosa's been missing. He doesn't have D Ford. Offensively, Kittle's been out. Debo's been out. And as we've all noticed, some of these games have been winnable, even with Nick Mullens at the helm.
Well, right, but Kittle being out does not help Mullens, overthrow Jordan Reed repeatedly over the middle, and
Yeah, and so let's real quick. You brought him up, George Kittle. So they opened the window for Kittle to be able to practice today. Now, the beat writers are saying they don't anticipate him playing Sunday, but the fact that they've opened the window for him to start practicing is an indication that they are leaning towards putting him back on the field. I'm going to guess, Jerry, that is not how you would approach George Kittle the remainder of the season. What was that?
I don't think it makes sense. I don't think it makes any sense at all. It's obviously time, to me, it's time for certain guys to shut it down. Debo, Warner, Mostert, go get healthy. Kittle, keep working on those Zenny eyeglass designs. Jimmy G, if they haven't already put him in bubble wrap, get on it pronto. The Niners just need to make sure he's healthy come the offseason so he can be traded or cut. I think it's crazy that they're even seriously considering bringing any of these guys back. For who? For what? What's there to evaluate?
Right.
They're asking these guys to make chicken salad out of chicken, what?
True, but then I guess they're maybe thinking, we're paying you all this money, we need you out there. I don't know. I agree with you. I don't know if he should be playing at this point. But I don't know. It's hard because you say like, oh, go get healthy. And which always frustrates me because I don't need you healthy in April. I need you healthy right now, which, doesn't always work out that way. And Todd likes to say that, guys get injured. What are you going to do? It's just so frustrating though.
Yes.
We wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for all these injuries, constantly.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
You're right. And we're already pushing time. And, I want to say this was the discussion that I was hoping that this podcast would develop into. And that is, it's high level. It comes with facts. It comes with an understanding that the person who screams the loudest isn't right. That there is, that there are different pathways to take in terms of getting, and everyone has a different idea of how to get there, which is, refreshing to hear. So awesome job. And I'm appreciative. So last couple minutes, Jerry, you got final thoughts going into the Cowboys game?
Well, for me, I think the good news is that this isn't 2017 when the cupboard was bare, right? There's talent on this roster, and the Niners can reload this offseason provided they do the right things and be right back in playoff contention. So I am going to drink to better times ahead. I'm going to pour a little something out for Dwight Clark since it's Cowboys week. And I'm going to give a shout out to our very own brewmaster, Todd. That's right. I'm talking to you, buddy. We're finishing second place in the Taplands Winter Wort competition with this delicious stout beer that you brewed. Here's to you, my friend.
Thank you, sir. Well, since you brought beer into the conversation, I've got to give kind of an equal shout out to Mr. Krupinski. As last week, I had the Golden Road Hazy during the podcast, and Jeff chimed in with the fact that he liked the Golden Road, but he liked the Mango Cart a little bit more fruity, a little bit more for the summertime, and happened to see it at my local beverage dispensary, shall we say. And so I picked up a little 6-pack. I had some during the week, and I'll say it was good. It would have been a little bit better had the weather been closer to 85 rather than 65, but it was a quality beer that I'm glad that the recommendation was out there. I'm also glad to hear you're enjoying a little Coach's Brew stout. That was a labor of love. And I think my final thought would be, even though the teams aren't, great, Cowboys Niners always exciting, especially during the lead up week, because that's when you start looking back at all the greatness that was the Niners Cowboys, whether it be the Dwight Clark catch, whether it be all those NFC championship games, whether it be, T.O. in the star, any number of things. That Niners Cowboys it is fun. It's fun all week long. And despite the records, it's going to be enjoyable to see the star and SF clash. So those are my final thoughts. Jeff?
I would just say, the Mango Cart is pretty delicious, pretty fruity beer. I drink a lot of those in the pool in the summertime. Not so much right now, but otherwise it's pretty good beer. My dog's over here barking. I don't know if you can hear that, of course. I would say the what I was going to say, my controversial take to end this is, I was thinking today, I don't know if I'm even going to watch the Niners-Cowboys game this Sunday.
Whoa!
Which I would never do or never say. I think I'll record it. I don't know what else to do, though, because all I do is watch football on Sunday. So, but this game is just not the same. It's not, Andy Dalton and Nick Mullens. I mean, come on. What are we playing for? Nothing. Like Jerry said, we're playing probably to lose, right? You get a better draft pick.
Maybe that's why they're putting in Nick Mullens. Oh, did I just say that?
Or maybe they should put in Beathard. Or maybe he thinks Nick Mullens gives him a better chance to lose. I don't know.
Well, all right, fellas.
We don't watch it, I guess, but I don't know.
I'm excited about the direction of the podcast, and I'm excited about the content that we've created today. I'm excited to see Jerry enjoying a nice beer. Sounds like that's going to be the secondary topic du jour on the podcast, which I'm completely fine with. So until next week, enjoy the game, enjoy the weekend of football. For Three Sides Sports Talk, we'll see you later. Thanks.